Guys, this is Alan, and I don't know if you watched my other video about propagating date palms, but now we're gonna go ahead and plant the mother plant in the ground. So when planting in the ground, the main thing you have to remember, regardless of what kind of soil you have, soil amendments or anything else, is drainage. Drainage is the main thing you have to worry about when planting any tree in the ground. So the rule of thumb that I follow is the 24-hour rule. That is, you dig a hole, obviously it has to be bigger than this root ball right here. How much bigger? It doesn't really matter, guys. It's all about the drainage. So you're gonna dig your hole, and then you're gonna fill that hole with water. If you wanna come out here, I can show you the hole that we have ready for the date palm. So we got the hole right here, and you can see, I don't know if you can tell my soil, I've been watering this area for the past 4 years now. When we first moved in here, this was hard clay. It took days to drain the water. By just watering the area over the years, it allowed the actual microorganisms in the soil to do their work, and they actually amended the soil. And now you can tell it's a lot looser and allows the water to drain a lot better. So if you're gonna plant anything in the ground, but today we're doing a date palm, you're gonna dig your hole. It has to be bigger than the container that your plant came in. And then you're gonna fill up the hole all the way up with water. And then you're gonna time it, and you're gonna see exactly how long it takes for that hole to drain the water completely. Remember the 24-hour rule? Yes, that's what you're looking for. Fill up the hole and wait. If it drains within 24 hours, you're good to go, guys. You don't have to do anything else. Now, let's say your hole takes several days to drain the water. If it was the first time that you filled it up with water, then disregard the first time. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and fill up the hole again with water a second time around, and then see how long it takes to actually drain the water. If the second time around takes less than 24 hours, you're good to go, guys. It was mainly compacted soil, and the reason it took so long to drain the water is because, well, it's been so dry, it was repelling a lot of the water that you put in there, and that's why it didn't drain fast enough. Now, if the second time you fill it up and it takes several days again to drain the water, that's not good, guys. You have to fix your drainage at that point. And then fixing your drainage, it depends. If you live here in Arizona, it's gonna be mainly clay. This is clay right here, guys. Clay is just a bunch of salts bonded together like this, and when you water, it doesn't allow the water to drain through. So what happens is the water pools on the surface. How do you fix clay? If you have high pH, the way I fix my clay soil is by using gypsum. Gypsum is soluble calcium. It has a positive charge. You sprinkle it all over the ground, you water it. It's a chemical reaction. It reacts with clay. What it does, it leaches all the salts away from that clay bonding, breaking up that bonding apart and allowing the water to drain. This area right here, it took several days to drain the water before I planted anything in here. But now it takes less than 12 hours. And that's just by using gypsum and watering the area over the years. So if you have clay and high pH, use gypsum. It's a chemical reaction. It will start working immediately. To get the full effect though, it's gonna take months to about a year to 2 years. But you know what? It will start working, so make sure you fix your drainage before you plant your tree in the ground. Now the second reason why your soil is not draining the water, it could be compacted soil. It could be rocks. It could be anything, guys. At that point, you're gonna have to keep going deeper in the ground until you break through whatever layer is preventing the drainage, so that way you know for sure that hole will drain the water. So what usually happens is, you plant your tree in the ground, you didn't verify drainage, you're gonna water. The water's gonna drain very quickly because guess what? You just dug this whole thing up and all the soil is broken up, so the water is gonna drain. But then the water is just gonna pool on the bottom of the hole and it's just gonna sit there indefinitely. And guess what? The first few inches is gonna dry again due to evaporation, due to the plant drinking the water, but the bottom will remain wet. And then you're gonna water again. And you're gonna keep doing that for months. Then winter comes, and then your plant starts dying back. And by spring that next year, your plant's dead. It's because of root rot, guys. That bottom never dry. It remained wet the whole time. So that's why drainage is very important. You're not gonna see issues right away, guys. It's gonna take months before you even realize you have any watering issues. So verify drainage, and that's pretty much the main thing about it. Now we have the hole right here. So the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna get the palm tree and we're gonna stick it in the hole. So let me go ahead and do that right now. Hey guys, so the plant is in the hole and now we're ready to plant. So the next most frequently asked question that I get, what garden mix to use? What potting mix to use? Generally, that depends on your soil, guys. So my soil is very rich in micronutrients and it lacks a lot of organic material. And the reason why is because, well, we're in the desert, it gets extremely hot here in the summer, so the water evaporates very quickly. So to be honest, the main thing I do with all my plants, I check for drainage. Drainage is the main thing you have to worry about. And then I want to kickstart the organic process, and I just use compost. 50% compost and 50% native soil, and that's pretty much all you need for all plants. Just eyeball it. It doesn't have to be exactly 50%. It could be a little lower, a little higher. Why don't you want to go 100% compost? The reason why is because you have to remember, compost is going to break down. The living organisms in the soil are going to eat that up. As it breaks down, the soil is going to settle. It's just going to settle, guys. So you don't want it settling too much over time, because then you're going to have to add more dirt and it just gets complicated. So you want to go about half, so that way you minimize settling of the plant too much. So what I do is I get compost, which is right here. This is the one that I like. I've used many composts before, and to be honest, compost is compost, guys. The only thing that makes a good compost good or bad is how fully decomposed is it. You have to understand, when they make this, they have huge piles, acres and acres full of compost, and they turn it every once in a while and then they bag it once it looks good enough. But is it ever fully decomposed? No, it's not, guys. So what usually happens is, if you get a fresh compost, for one, it may feel cool to the touch, but as soon as you add water in there, it's going to restart the decomposition process, and that's going to give out heat right next to the root ball of your plant. So what makes a good compost or bad compost is pretty much how fully decomposed is it. So you look at it, and if you want to come over here, just look at it. And if you see a lot of big chunks in there, that's not good. So this one has been somewhat screened, so you can tell it's actually almost dirt. There are a few big chunks in there that are gonna break down over time, but this is good enough. So the way you're gonna do this is, I get the bag and then I just spread it around. I usually put a layer on the bottom. Just like that. Alright, so that's one layer right there. Now then the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get my shovel, and then I'm gonna put dirt on top of that. So what you're trying to do is, you're trying to layer it. A lot of people worry about mixing their compost and the native soil and make sure that it's fully mixed and then plant it in the ground. You know what, guys? Once it's in the ground, it doesn't really matter, because your plant eats whatever dissolves in water. If it doesn't dissolve in water, your plant's not going to eat it. Does your plant care if it's fully mixed in there? No, it doesn't. Everything's going to mix itself naturally over time. So what I like to do, I put a layer of compost, a layer of native dirt, then another layer of compost, another layer of dirt, and then the last layer that I put on top is gonna be dirt, native dirt. I don't want compost all the way on the surface, and the main reason why is because if compost is dry, it's not working for you guys. Your plant is not able to eat this compost right here. It doesn't have a mouth to eat it up, break it down, digest it like we do our food. So what you're actually feeding by putting compost in the soil, you're feeding the living organisms in the soil. So they are the ones that are gonna eat that up, they're gonna break it down, and then their poop, when mixed with water, when it's small enough, then your plant's gonna be able to eat it. So just put a layer of dirt, compost, and make your last layer your native dirt. Obviously, if your soil is not good enough, guys, let's say your soil is full of rocks, it's just nasty, full of caliche or whatever, at that point you're gonna have to get some topsoil and replace that, because you're not gonna be able to use the rocks to mix it back into the soil. So if you want to come over here, as you're adding the layers, you want to make sure you stick your hand in there and you want to compact it down. The reason we do this is because we want to prevent settling. So if you don't compact it down, when you water, it's going to create a lot of air gaps in there. And as you water, those air gaps are going to collapse. And then the soil on the surface up here is going to just settle down. You don't want that to happen. Some settling is fine, but a lot, it's not good, guys. You're going to have to add more dirt in the future if you don't do this. So you want to go around, you want to compact the soil all the way around, and then add another layer. And just keep doing that until you fill up the hole with dirt. Now I'm going to put another layer. And then I'm just going to add more native soil in there, and I think we'll be okay. And then as you add the layers, like I said, you want to compact it down. You can stand on it, you can just do what I'm doing. However way you want to do it, doesn't matter. Another thing to keep in mind too when planting in the ground, the crown of the root of your tree, that is where the trunk meets the root ball. You don't want to bury that underneath the dirt. You want to keep that clear, because a lot of your breathing roots are in there. So what usually happens is if you bury this on top when you water, that's gonna stay wet. And remember, your plant doesn't have roots in here, so it won't be able to drink the water in here. It's gonna give you the impression that it's wet, when in reality the root ball in the bottom could be completely dry, especially in the middle of the summer. So I like to keep this clear right here. Don't put dirt in there. You can put mulch on top, but not dirt. That's gonna compact down and prevent drainage, and it just stay wet too long. And you know, it's gonna make it harder for you to check if the root ball is dry or not. So let me go ahead and finish this up. Alright guys, so this is pretty much almost done. Now the last thing you want to do, guys, you can put mulch on top of it. I use what do you call it, pine bark chips, and then you can just put that on the surface. If it's right against the crown of your tree, it's not an issue. And the main reason why is because bigger chunks allows the air through, so it's not gonna compact and stay wet. And you can easily pull it back if you need to check the root ball to see if it's wet or dry. And then what I like to do once it's fully planted in the ground, I'm gonna water it some. So let me go get my water right now, and then I'll be right back. Alright guys, so this is the last step, and that is watering your plant. What I see people do all the time is they get the water hose and they completely flood the whole area. During the summer, that's fine, no issues there. But you have to remember, it's almost winter for me. The soils, the plants are not drinking that much water, and the soil is taking a lot longer to dry. So I don't want to completely flood it because it's going to take weeks for that to dry. You have to understand, all that needs soil around your plant doesn't have roots in there. If there are no roots there, your plant's not able to drink the water. I mean, the water from that soil. So that's going to stay wet. What's actually going to dry out is going to be the root ball of your plant. So what I like to do, I like to water everything just briefly, just like this. And you're done, guys. You don't have to water this for hours and flood the whole yard just because you planted a tree in the ground. What's the point of doing that, guys? Now, I understand some people like to flood the holes to allow the dirt to settle down, which is okay, you know. If you didn't compact it down, then go ahead and flood it up, you know, completely. Let it soak up. That's gonna break up a lot of the air bubbles inside the soil, and that's gonna make the soil settle immediately. And then you can come back a few days later and you can just top it off with more soil on top just to make up for that settling. But you know, I compacted the soil, so it's not gonna happen as much. So there's really no point for me to flood the whole hole with water. So I just water briefly. I know the roots are right here, right around the trunk, right there. And then just by watering there just briefly, that's all the plant needs, guys. It doesn't need anything else. So if you want to flood the whole area, that's fine. But you have to understand, that root ball right there will dry faster than the surrounding soil. Even if everything around here is soaking wet, that root ball will dry faster than everything around it because it has no roots in there. So for at least the first few months, you want to check the root ball. So let's say you just water. You're gonna wait 12 to 24 hours. You're gonna come out here, you're gonna scoop the mulch back, and then you're gonna stick your finger right there, and you're gonna feel for moisture. Does it feel moist? Does it feel dry? And that is exactly how often you're gonna water, guys. So you're gonna water one time, you're gonna wait 12, 24 hours, and keep checking until a few inches of that is dry. And that is exactly how often you water for the first season. I would say for at least the first summer. So remember, let it dry for about 6 to 12 inches, and that's exactly how often you water. Concentrate on the root ball. Once the plant is fully rooted in the ground, which is going to take at least 1 year, then you're not going to have to water as often. Palm trees in general, they have a shallow root system. So the root system of this plant goes I would say 3 to 6 feet in the ground. So when you water, make sure it soaks up the ground completely, and then let it dry in between watering, and then water again. How often? It's just going to depend on your temperatures. In the summer, you're going to have to do that a lot more often than in the winter. And that's it for now, guys. If you have any questions, comment below, and then I'll see you next.